It's all comedy in theory. We can laugh at what we need. It's all comedy in theory. We can laugh at what we want.
Welcome to It's All Comedy in Theory, a historic and hilarious look at who and what makes us laugh. Once again, I'm your host, Charlie Spink. In today's episode, we take a deeper dive into the Vaudeville Era, focusing on those comedy troupes that have brought the world so much joy. As they say, 1 is lonely, 2 is company, and 3, well, you just might have yourself an act. Comedy can be a team sport, and here's a rundown of some of the great comedy teams of the Vaudeville Era. In the early years of vaudeville, acts featuring children were popular. In fact, in 1913 there were 60 child acts billed in the US alone. Or, as Michael Jackson would call it, a great birthday party. Or, as Jeffrey Epstein would call it, a great bachelor party. Or, as R. Kelly would call it, a nice time for a bathroom break. Fun fact, American comedy actress Terry Garr's father, Eddie Garr, was a noted performer, known primarily for schoolroom acts, a popular theme in early vaudeville. Buster Keaton, of no relation to Michael Keaton. Of course, in that case, that would be the I'm Batman versus I'm Laugh Man. Joseph Buster Keaton was a well-known child performer who was born into a vaudeville family. In 1899, at the tender age of 3, Keaton began performing with his parents in the Three Keatons. In the act, the young Keaton would goad his father by disobeying him, and then Papa Keaton would respond by throwing him against the scenery, into an orchestra pit, or even into the audience. Buster learned to take trick falls safely. He was rarely injured or bruised on stage. Keaton went on to become a prolific actor and director. Weber and Fields. Joseph Weber and Lou Fields were a hit as a comedy vaudeville duo. The two appeared at Bowery saloons, museums, circuses, and in 1885 made their first stage appearance at Miners Bowery Theater in New York. Their slapstick, roughhouse, English garbling antics soon caught on, and they became a vaudeville sensation. Bartow and Man. Dewey Bartow and George Mann, with their comedy dance act, were known as the Laugh Kings of Vaudeville. Their acrobatic, somewhat risque performances usually played up on the disparities in their height. Bartow was 4'11", and Mann was 6'6". Man, that man was tall. A theatrical newspaper review of their performance said, 10 minutes before they went on at the Palace, nobody knew about Bartow and Mann. 10 minutes after they came off the stage, the whole Broadway world was talking about them. The Duncan Sisters. Rosetta and Vivian Duncan began their stage careers in 1911 as part of the cast of Gus Edwards' Kitty Revue with their popular vaudeville act Topsy and Eva, with Rosetta as the foghorn-voiced comedian and Vivian as the pretty but dumb blonde type. Within a few years, they matured into first-rate vaudeville troopers. Rosetta later left the world of comedy to create the Rosetta Stone software, which really floundered until they invented the computer, some 65 years later. The team of Clayton Jackson Durante, or the Three Sawdust Bums, featured Lou Clayton, Eddie Jackson, and Jimmy Durante. Clayton had already achieved the most coveted booking in all of vaudeville, appearing as the headliner at the Palace Theater. The trio made their vaudeville debut in 1927, with an act that literally included breaking up furniture. Durante sang the virtues of wood, oh, there's an innuendo in there somewhere, while Clayton and Jackson grabbed wood items and smashed them on the stage. Needless to say, it was a smashing hit. By April 1928, they were headlining at the Palace, breaking the house records and breaking the house in the process. Abbot and Costello. Bud Abbott and Lou Costello first worked together in 1935 at a burlesque theater in New York City. The duo built an act by refining and reworking numerous burlesque sketches, with Abbott as the devious straight man, and Costello as the dim-witted comic. Here's a look at their famous bit, Who's On First?
Louis team, we have who's on first, what's on second, I don't know's on third.
That's what I want to find out. I want you to tell me the names of the fellows on the St. Louis team.
I'm telling you, who's on first, what's on second, I don't know's on third.
You know the fellow's names?
Yes.
Well, then who's playing first? The fellow's name on first base.
Who?
The fellow playing first base for St. Louis.
Who?
The guy on first base.
Who is on first?
Well, what are you asking me for?
George Burns and Gracie Allen began their career as vaudeville performers in 1922. Burns wrote the majority of their material and played the straight man. Allen was a silly, addle-headed woman, a common vaudevillian stereotype. The Burns and Allen team was not an overnight sensation. We were good as a man and woman act, Burns said, but we were not headliners or stars. Their career changed in that direction when they made their first film in 1929. It was an adult film called Put the Cigar in the What Now? It was not. Enjoy this clip from their show.
You look so handsome in your tuxedo. And you look beautiful in your new dress.
Well, thank you. That's why I mentioned your old tuxedo.
The Three Stooges. Ted Healy, a comedy straight man, hired Moe Howard, Moe's brother Shemp, and Larry Fine for a new act called Ted Healy and His Three Southern Gentlemen, who became better known as the Three Stooges. In the act, Healy would attempt to sing or tell jokes, while his noisy assistants would keep interrupting, causing Healy to retaliate with verbal and physical abuse. The Stooges ultimately left Healy to form their own act. In 1932, Healy was finally able to reach a new agreement with the original Stooges, but Shemp decided to quit the act. He later resurfaced in the Jackson 5. With Shemp gone, Healy and the two remaining Stooges needed a replacement, so Moe suggested his younger brother, Jerry Howard. Healy reportedly took one look at Jerry, who had long, chestnut red hair and a handlebar mustache, and remarked that he did not look like he was funny. Jerry left the room and returned a few moments later with his head shaved, and then quipped, "Boy, do I look girly!" Healy heard, "Curly," and the name stuck. When Healy died, Curly said, "Healy wasn't long for this world," but in creating the Three Stooges, he had a lasting effect on comedy. Here's a clip from the Three Stooges featuring Ted Healy.
Ladies and gentlemen, did anybody order roast beef? I can't. Come on back here, I'll do it. Hey, who put this glass in there? Boys, listen to me, please. You know this is a high-class place? This is where the real society people are. The real high-class society. Junior, will you watch your P's and Q's, please? You stop.
Moving on to communism, the Marx Brothers. The Marx Brothers started in a child singing troupe called the Six Mascots. The act evolved from singing comedy with a sketch called Fun in the High School, featuring Groucho as a German-accented teacher and the students Harpo, Gummo, and Chico. Their 14-year-old brother Zeppo joined the group in the last version of the act. It's believed it was the only time all 5 Marx Brothers appeared together on stage. By the 1920s, the Marx Brothers had become one of America's favorite theatrical acts. They had a sharp and bizarre sense of humor. They satirized high society and human hypocrisy. They also became famous for their improvisational comedy skills and freeform scenarios. This was only the beginning of a decades-long career for the Marx Brothers. Here's a bit from their password skit.
Who are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Who are you?
I'm fine too, but you can't come in unless you give the password.
Oh, what is the password?
Oh, no, you gotta tell me. Hey, I tell you what I do, I give you 3 guesses. It's the name of a fish.
Is it Mary?
That's no fish.
She isn't. Well, she drinks like one. Let me see. Is it sturgeon?
Hey, you crazy. Sturgeon, he's a doctor who cuts you open when you're sick. Now, I give you one more chance.
I got it. Haddock.
That's so funny. I got a headache, too.
What do you take for a haddock?
Well, now, sometimes I take aspirin, or sometimes I take a calomel.
Say, I'd walk a mile for a calomel.
You mean chocolate calomel. I like that, too, but you know, guess it.
In our next episode, we'll delve even further into the single acts that were born from vaudeville. Those single acts who paved the way for the art that has become today's stand-up comedy. Thank you for watching, and be sure to hit that subscribe button floating somewhere on the screen. Once again, you've listened to It's All Comedy in Theory. I've been Charlie Spink, and you're very welcome.
It's all comedy in theory. We can laugh at what we want. It's all jokes, it's all good. It's all jokes, it's all good. Comedy, baby. Ha!